population growth and climate change, and I'm here from the West, so I can tell you there is an epicenter of water stress right where we live, and I'll get into that here in a second. The population growth and climate change are, as Arthur said, those are indeed causes that you can attribute the current situation to. Thank you. But we don't have a water quantity problem. We have a water management problem. We get 14 million acre feet of water that fall from the heavens on Colorado alone every year. So we don't have an issue with having enough. What we have is an issue of how we manage that water. On both the municipal side, residential being the main component there, and agriculture, where 80 to 90% of our consumptive use occurs in the West. So it's really, like Arthur said, inadequate decision making by governments and decision makers in the past. And I've got a full disclosure here. I am one of those former decision makers. So the hat should probably be black. It's a tale that I'm going to try and tell as a cautionary note. Don't do what we did in Colorado. And where is Colorado? Well, this map shows you, let me just tell you a story of the western U.S. The line that you see on the far right-hand side of that map is the 100th meridian. Everything to the left of that line has to be irrigated in order for it to grow. Everything to the right of that line can be grown just with the humidity, the precipitation, and the temperature that are available in those regions. So this map shows you, it was done by our first U.S. geological surveyor in the West, John Wesley Powell. He said we should really do our democracy out here in the sovereign states by river basin, not by these arbitrary survey lines. Well, we didn't do that. We ended up using those arbitrary survey lines, and the purple box that I just drew is Colorado. Here it is again. If we look at that rectangle, you've got water that starts there that reaches 18 downstream states and the Republic of Mexico. So when it comes to water, we like to say, water policy, we punch above our weight. We're quite well versed in water policy and management west of the 100th meridian. We're the developers of the original water law that still is the bedrock of water policy and regulation today in the West. Many states call it the Colorado Doctrine. It's called the Doctrine of Prior Appropriation in our state. So, we didn't do the basin approach to state boundaries. We did the other way, and here's the issue that we're getting to, the inadequacy of the government decision making. We've created this structure where we've divided up our states. This is Colorado, but you've got this exact same map for every single state in the West. And what the lines on this map are conservation and conservancy districts, special districts that were set up in order to safeguard those individual jurisdictions' water. This is the water and sanitation districts in Colorado. This is a zoomed in version of that in Denver. So it's basically you throw a rock and you hit a water provider in Colorado. And it's a wonderful thing from a grassroots direct democracy perspective. It is a terrible way to run the railroad if you're looking for efficiency and regionalization. And guess what you need in this current environment of water stress more than any other component? You need that regionalization and that collaboration over this issue. So our water policy in the state of Colorado, we're underlaid by a massive aquifer system that we don't even use right now. Other parts of the world do it much more efficiently because they regionalize and they don't divide themselves quite up as much as we do. So this is the Colorado River Basin, 250,000 square miles, food for food for millions of people. 40 million people depend on water just from this river for their existence. If you just took this river's GDP, it would be the 5th largest GDP in the world. So it scales. It's quite large. It cuts through the 7 states and into Mexico. And when it hits, well, before it hits Mexico, we pull a lot of water off of it, and we grow the Southern California area, and we've grown Phoenix and Tucson. So what that means is that the real center of gravity when it comes to water stress in the Colorado River Basin is Southern California. The other place Southern California gets their water is from the Bay Delta, the state water project that brings water to it. The reason I'm going on and on about this in this conversation about circular water is we are connected to the Bay Area in Denver hydrologically through these 4 very simple steps. That means that we have to manage the system better than we found it. We found it in 1922 with 20 million acre feet of water in it. That's a lot of water. It's about, just to be clear, that's about 1/10 the size of the Columbia River. But this is the hardest working river system in the country in my book. We could debate about that over drinks if you want later. But we cut the river in half. We said 7.5 million acre feet would be available for use in the upper basin states. 7.5 million acre feet would be available for use in the lower basin states. In 1944, we did a treaty with Mexico that gave them 1.5 million acre feet. So you add all those numbers up and you get 16.5 million acre feet. Everyone's happy. We don't have a problem. Problem is, we don't have that. We have 2 reservoirs, the largest reservoirs in the nation, Lake Powell and Lake Mead, that sit on this system that try and meter out the water so that the states all don't fight with each other. We're on the cusp of a very nasty, very prolonged and protracted fight right now. And why? Because we have 20 million acre feet was about the flow of the river back in 1922 when we negotiated the law, the compact. And right now we're looking at a river that's basically been cut in half. It's about 10 million acre feet. So when you've got that kind of water stress, you have to get innovative, creative. That's what happened when John Wesley Powell drew the map that I led off with. That's what's happening in the water demand management, residential, circular water conversation that you're having here in New York. That's really the importance of, this is the state of the Colorado River. The trend line is going in the wrong direction, you can see. And we don't have years where, this year included, where we've got a very good snowpack, we're still losing water out of those reservoirs. We're not banking water because of our management regime that's in place. Again, I can talk more about that later. We want different circular water based solutions. Gray water, when we have the ability to invest in water conservation in the agricultural sector, that means that me, in my operation as a rancher, I can take the money that you pay me, or the federal government pays me through things like the Inflation Reduction Act. You pay me to take my land out of production or to conserve water in some way. I'll take that cash and I'll pour it back into my business, and I'll adopt regenerative agricultural practices that in turn address climate change and hopefully slow aridification of our basin. That in turn, that improvement, that efficiency gives me better yields on my product when I do start to irrigate again. And that in turn puts more money in my pocket, and this cycle is the one that I've been trying to champion this whole time. So speaking of innovation, I asked OpenAI to write a story about gray water. Once upon a time, there was a family that lived in a water-stressed region with limited access to freshwater resources. The family was concerned about their water usage and wanted to find ways to reduce their water consumption and promote sustainability. One day, the family learned about gray water and how it could be used as a valuable resource for reducing freshwater use. They decided to install a gray water system in their home, which would allow them to collect and treat wastewater from their shower and bath. The family discovered that by using gray water, they were able to reduce their water bills and promote sustainability in their community. They were able to use the treated gray water for non-potable reuses such as toilet flushing, which helped them conserve freshwater resources. Over time, the family's gray water system became a point of pride in their community, and other families began to follow their example, installing gray water systems in their homes as well. The town even started a campaign to promote gray water use, and soon it became a common practice throughout the community. In the end, the family's decision to install a gray water system not only helped them reduce their water consumption and save money, but it also inspired others to do the same, promoting sustainability and environmental stewardship in their community. That story that I didn't write was gleaned from the work that people in this room have done. Dean at the Water Council contributed in a way to that. This is a system, you've seen others. The point of this is that product is available, like Arthur said. It's available right now. The fact that we have new construction in the western part of this country that doesn't come equipped with this kind of technology is criminal. We have got to be doing this at scale, at pace. Like Dean said, we can't wait. It has to be now. So it's critical that the people in this room, when you go back home or you network with your colleagues later in the day or the weekend, you realize that at the end of it, we're fighting an existential threat, and that threat is climate change. So we either take it seriously and do something about it, and there are things we can do about it. I was supposed to talk, Arthur, about the situation in Colorado with respect to our regulatory regime around gray water. What we did was the opposite of what we should have done. We made a statewide regulation that you have to opt into at the local government level. Why is that 180 degrees off? Because we should have made it an opt-out regulation. That would have allowed every single jurisdiction in our state to adopt a gray water technology without having to have experts informing their city council or their county commissioners about how they were going to move forward with that. Opting out is a lot more preferable to accelerate the pace of the innovation. I leave you with Winston Churchill, who fought a little bit of an existential threat when in his day. Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Keep going, and happy to answer questions now or later. Oh yeah, the hat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Wonderful.